Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. I am your host, Evan Drisner, and this episode I have a guest that actually we tried to have back in the old show. I'm excited about. She's an author, she's been in media sales, she's also a coach. So thanks for being my guest, Daria.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we're going to get to your book.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But before that, I always like to kind of start in the background because it didn't start with a book.
No.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from? Are you a Saskatchewan girl? Did you grow up in the province?
Super sheltered. I was born in Saskatoon and raised here, and I've never left. In the years when I took my university degree, almost everybody was leaving for Alberta.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to get a job in my own industry right after university, and then I met the boy, well, in the opposite order, met the boy, finished the university degree, got the job, and stayed, and he had a good career building here too, and so all of our families here, and we just have never felt like we needed to leave. And then it's really fun to see a whole bunch of people coming back who left right after university, and everyone's finding opportunity back here.
I was one of those mid-90s, took off to Calgary.
Yeah.
So what did you take in university?
Took my commerce degree in marketing.
Okay, marketing. So that's how it kind of started, right? Because we'll get to the book, we'll get to the coaching.
Yeah.
But right out of university, well, actually go before that. Why marketing? What intrigued you about marketing in high school?
So in fact, actually, at the end of high school, I was registered to go into arts and science because I knew I should go to university, but I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. But then I'd been working at our family Dairy Queen. I'd actually gotten a job when I was 15 and ended up marrying into the family, which has been convenient ever since to be in a Dairy Queen family. And just been like working in that Dairy Queen. That last summer, I realized I really liked the business side of it. I started doing just the deposit for the bank and little stuff like that, but it really got me interested in business. And so before the school year started, I just switched most of my classes into commerce prerequisites and then switched over to commerce. And looking at all of the options, marketing just sounded like the most fun. And so took the degree, was fortunate enough to get a job in media advertising right out of university. And so I got to learn how advertising worked and how business worked by basically interviewing business owners and trying stuff over the years in advertising and learning.
And I mean, the cool part about that is it's a small enough market that you actually learn about your customers too. Like you learn probably too much at points.
Well, you got to go in to their office and you got to hear how things are going and what they were doing, what was working, what wasn't working. Got to learn about all the staffing issues. Over the years, no matter what business you're in and what problems you have, staffing is always one of the biggest challenges, and that affects everything else. So if you're advertising somebody to come into your store and then you can't deliver because your staff isn't up to snuff, that affects the work we're doing together. So I really got to become part of a lot of people's businesses, and it was a unique and fun way to learn. I got to learn without the risk of it being my own business at the time. And I can't even say how many times I was in the office in the back of a retail store or restaurant. Everyone they would apologize for how messy their office was. I don't think I'd ever been invited in for a meeting when somebody didn't apologize, but everyone's busy running their business. And so, so it was a really great way in a small market to see, okay, we do this is the result, this is how it affected growth of their business.
It's not just anecdotal, there's some experience too.
Absolutely.
So rewind a bit, because I'm always intrigued about like the childhood too. Like, so was business, or like you said, you felt like you had to go to university, was that because your parents went to university, or was it that they had jobs and were instilling that in you?
A little bit of all of that. I think I always knew my parents chose to live in Saskatoon because it was a university town. They were from small town Saskatchewan, farming growing up. Mom took, back then it was a year of teacher's college, and then she was teaching by the time she was probably 18 or 19, but she worked her butt off. Like she was the hardest working teacher, and as a result, people still say she was one of their favorite teachers ever. And my dad was always in the business world. He never owned a business, but he was in the insurance industry for a lot of years, and you'd run into people and you could see that he had personalized the business side of it. Like he had made it personal. So people bought him and they trusted him, and it was an insurance product. It wasn't something we think about all the time, but the way he impacted people showed me how to do business. It's that you're solving a problem, you're taking care of a family, if you want to put it that way. And so I think I just had an understanding of business based on the way he did. He was in sales most of his life.
Yeah.
He started out as a teacher, went into real estate for a few years, but most of my life he was in insurance. And so I think I just sort of saw the model of how you do business as a real human and work with people to just make their lives better, I guess.
Yeah, I get it.
And then I think being part of the Dairy Queen and the family there so young, I saw that was my model for owning a business, was seeing how hard they worked. They were there every day, 7 days a week, still are actually.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that was some of my influence.
Yeah,
for sure.
business ownership isn't always the fairy tale it's made up to be.
No, it isn't.
It's funny, like you talked a bit about your dad and how he tried a few different things, and your career kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
Was that? Do you think that was subconscious, that like you just weren't afraid to try something because you saw it as a child?
No, if you would have said to me 10 years ago, you're going to quit your job, start a business, write a book, and get a dog, I would have said none of those things are ever going to happen, because I really enjoyed being in advertising. For all those years, I felt like I got to kind of run my own business, but with the safety net of a company.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I really never saw myself moving, but I think I just eventually realized I had more to offer. And once I had that realization, just because I got to learn for so many years, I felt like the businesses that I was working with I could do more for them than just be that single lens of advertising sales for them. I had learned how to build business through sales, through building a brand, and through the advertising. But I could only help them with that one little piece of it.
Yeah.
So I think it was almost just like this conclusion. Well, I have learned all of this over the years. I feel like I have a different way to share it. And it was something that I avoided admitting for a while, actually, because it was like, well, then I have to leave the safety and the fun of having somebody else's business, that I work for.
And were you worried about relationships that you'd built?
Definitely. When you work for the same company for almost 20 years, they're like family. So absolutely, it's hard to leave
and
for that reason.
And some of your clients too, I'm
Absolutely, yeah. I had clients that I worked with for 15, 16 years, and it is emotional to make that big switch. I was even emotional, like I took 3 maternity leaves while I was working in advertising. Even the first time I had to tell the company I'm leaving for a year, it was hard to do.
Of course.
Yeah, so change is hard sometimes, for sure.
You go from university marketing degree, and then you kind of jump into, it's marketing, but there's a sales aspect.
Yes.
There's a tendency to blend sales and marketing. They're the same thing. Advertising and marketing, same thing. It's not.
No.
And there's some very subtle differences, and there's some very obvious differences. Why did you go from a marketing degree? Why was that something that you were interested in, jumping into that?
Sales?
Sales, yeah.
I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I honestly, because I think I had a misunderstanding of what sales was. I thought it was, I just thought, it's that old-fashioned being really salesy.
For sure.
But I really was interested in working in advertising, and that was the job opportunity that came about, was you're going to be an advertising consultant. You're selling it, but you get to actually put into place marketing and advertising plans for people. And so it was almost like this is part of it. You have to sell it to them before you get to do the work for them.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I was looking for a sales career. It was the opposite. It was, I'd love to work in advertising. Being a sales rep is the perfect way to do it, because you can be front and center with the plans. You're not just in the background, working on a brand from a cubicle. You get to be in front of the clients and making plans with them. So,
it's again, Saskatoon's a bit of a smaller market. So if you have a marketing degree 20 years ago, as our city has grown over the last 10 to 15 years, we're seeing those marketing agencies show up, but there probably weren't too many back then.
No, when we were in university, all the accounting people had jobs before we finished school, and there were lots of firms coming and recruiting for finance and accounting, and there was one international brand that would come and do these huge interviews for marketing students.
Of course.
And some of us got past the initial interviews, some of us got sent to Toronto for an interview, but that was it. So you didn't know what you were going to do the moment you were done school at all.
Yeah.
You had no idea. Yeah.
That's kind of the best part of Saskatchewan, is we really don't know. Tomorrow might be minus 40.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be the worst.
It's a surprise every day.
Exactly. So what was the catalyst then for you to go from I have stability, I have this safety net, I enjoy my clients, I enjoy what I do. What was the catalyst then that took you to the next part of that journey?
I think a few seeds were planted after I came back after my third maternity leave, because every time you go away for a year when you're in sales, you have to build business up again. And so at that time, I thought, I've got 10, 12 years of experience here. Why is it still like starting from scratch, cold calling, kind of doing the same things? I have a great network. I have people who are really happy with the work I've done. Why do referrals not come to me? Like, why is this still so hard? So I started to feel like there's got to be a better way. And so I started seeking out extra training, learning. I hired a business coach. I learned from somebody that knew more about what I wanted to do.
Which is pretty crazy that you would have thought that far ahead to hire a business coach.
Yeah, well, that was a little bit later, but it was all in that whole idea of searching for a better way to build business. And there's got to be a better way than just cold calling. And so after all the years, I started to realize that, I looked around me and very few businesses had a real plan for how they were building business. I realized I didn't either.
Yeah.
So when I started to be deliberate and start building my own personal brand and my expertise in the market, I started doing things differently. And then it led to, now I've learned a better way to do this. And I've sort of built my own system over the 3 times I came back, how to build a business, how to put in a process in your weekly schedule that brings in clients.
Yeah.
And so it just became sort of clear that I would love to teach that to people, the things that I'd learned over the years. Because I had a unique opportunity to learn sales and marketing at the same time. So kind of both sides. So the coaching I do is sales, brand building, and choosing advertising properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then we're going to get into this. How did you start writing a book? And then, of course, talking about your business going forward. So stay tuned for more of the Daria Malin story. Welcome back with Daria Malin, my guest. So we kind of talked before the commercial break a little bit of where you came from. And one thing that stuck out to me was you're talking about, like, if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said no. And that's the whole point of this show for me. It's not just about finding entrepreneurs. It's about finding stories that people can either relate to or be encouraged by and inspired by. So you were working 20 years as a marketing consultant, and then you decide, I'm going to write a book. It's not that. It wasn't like that.
It wasn't like that.
But there's people out there that I'm guessing are thinking, maybe I should write a book, or maybe I'd like to, or do something, but they just won't take that step. How did this come about? Like, how did you go from marketing consultant to I'm going to write a marketing book?
I had met somebody who was a speaker at a conference, and we kept in touch. And at the time, I was in traditional media, and there was people didn't really understand how social media, new media really complemented or played into the world of marketing. So it went from all traditional media to everybody jumped ship and went all to new media. And before I left,
and traditional, just
like
so
radio,
like,
TV, print, billboards, things that have always kind of been around. And so there was it was like the Wild West. Nobody knew what was going on, what worked, what didn't, what a good digital marketing plan meant. To some people, it was like one post a month on Facebook that their mom liked and their staff. And to other people, it was like a really good actual plan. So but through all of that, it just got bigger, and the whole fear of missing out, or there's so many things you could do with marketing and things that I didn't even understand. And I was in marketing. I'd read these articles about things that they were doing in the States and just be like, I don't understand how that serves your customer. It's just complicated. So I think I had complained to this he was a publisher and he was speaking at a conference, and we kept, like I said, we're in touch. And I kept complaining about how complicated marketing had made itself. And so as a business owner, you sit there and go, well, what the heck do I do? There's so many options. My buddy's doing this, she's doing that. I can't do it all. I don't even understand that. So he eventually said to me, you know what, I think I'd like you to write a book on this. And at the time I nervously laughed and I said, no. I said, what do I have to really say about it? You have that feeling of, well, other people are going to disagree with me or whatever the case is. But as I started to feel more like I needed to move into consulting or coaching on my own in some capacity, overall it was, I want to teach this stuff. I want to teach people what I've learned. So then I said yes to the book because I thought, I don't know exactly how my business model is going to look, but I know the book can be a part of it because it can show what I've learned over all of these years. So I started writing the outline, and by Christmas of that year, I wrote the outline. By the spring, I had kind of a rough draft.
And you were still working as a marketing consultant when you were doing that?
Yeah.
So you were burning, and you had 3 kids?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And my husband had just finished his PhD that year, so it was a big
busy
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you kind of glazed over it. Yeah, I wrote my outline. How did you know to write an outline?
So
how did you know how to
the great
even
thing
write
is,
a book?
in that situation, for me, you always seek out somebody who knows what you want to know.
Yeah.
I don't make up stuff. Like I didn't know how to write a book, so he was really good with giving me, here's how you write an outline. You should have 10 chapters. And they work specifically with people who write business books. So we want 10 chapters, 5 topics within the chapters, 5 subtopics. So I can do. I can put those into topics. And then the writing process is interesting because I've never been a writer. So sitting down to write a book, you'd say, okay, let's write a chapter about branding. Well, I'd have a paragraph and be like, what else do I have to say about that? So he and I got on the phone, I can't remember how often, maybe once a month.
Okay.
And he would just ask me leading questions about that chapter. And we recorded it. So over the years when I worked with advertisers, I would verbally teach them, this is what we're doing. This is why this is why the plan is the plan. This is how advertising works. This is how persuasion works. All the things that I would teach, that was all verbal. So when we talked about it on the phone and we recorded it, all the ideas and examples would come to mind. If I tried to sit and write it at a computer, I couldn't think of anything. So then I hired a transcriptionist who typed it out. And that became the raw data, rough draft of the book. And then from there, you'd think that the hard work's done, but the exact opposite is true. So I first started romantically writing the book, like with a glass of wine on my patio. And then 3 months in, I was like, okay, this is not romantic anymore. Yeah. And it was lots of hours of editing and then getting it to where I could have 5 beta readers read it and give feedback. And then a professional editor came on board, and then we went through the whole thing 3 times together. So
and
it was very tedious.
In terms of entrepreneurial, is that all at your cost at that point?
That
you're paying for an editor, you're doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and every setup is different depending on the publisher or if you're self-publishing or whatever. Yeah.
Depending how good the book is.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
If I wrote a book, I'd pay for everything. I'd pay for the printing.
You'd pay people to read it.
I would send it to my family. I'd even try to autograph it. They'd return it, or I'd find it at Goodwill or something. So you're writing this book. You're still a marketing consultant. What was the catalyst to go, you know what, I'm going to jump. I'm going to either, at this point, was it I'm going to be an author full time, or were you already thinking boost, coaching?
The book was just, I feel like I want to teach this. I don't know exactly how that's going to look, but the book will be a part of it. So that's why I had started on it. And then as I was working through how it's going to look, I just decided a coaching model was the way to go, because there's a lot of agencies out there already who can put together a marketing plan for you. What I wanted to do was the opposite. I wanted to kind of become almost a co-pilot in my clients' businesses, where it would be step by step as your business changes and grows. I'm there helping you drive the car. Half of coaching is accountability. And so that's what my clients come to me for too, is we're going to put in systems in place in your business, and I'm going to help you implement them. But then I'm also going to be there next month so that you feel like you have to get it done, so that everybody is on the same page next month. And, I have a phone call coming up with Daria. Like, this has been sitting on the side of my desk. I should really get it done.
Get this done.
Yeah. So I felt like I wanted to complement what other people were doing in the market, and I had been working with a coach, and I really appreciated that model. So I built my coaching model after something that I already knew was working in other markets.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
When you kind of can picture and emulate it a little
Yeah.
bit, take the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So now you've decided, okay, I'm gonna quit my security. I'm gonna move on. Young family. Just trying to publish a book. Like, that would have been a busy season.
Dumb. It was a big year. And we got a puppy that year.
Yeah.
And that's a big job in itself. And I have a
More
home
time
office.
to time to edit.
Oh my gosh.
Because you're up all the time.
It was the silliest year. Silly.
So then, okay, so now you're starting your Boost, right? It's called Boost Coaching.
Yeah.
So you start that. Did you publish the book kind of right at the same time? Was
the
that
first year of Boost Strategic Coaching, I was editing.
'Kay.
So anybody who's been in a business development role appreciates how many hours you need to be in front of people to build a business. I was trying to do that while editing, kind of like 40 hours a week for a bunch of time. So I was, I spent a lot of time at the university library, just kind of hide from the world, like a couple days a week. And then I would try to do my business development on the other days. And I had it in mind that I wanted to get the book done quite quickly because I felt like it was a tool that I could use in my coaching and in my keynote speaking and group training. I needed to get it done. I didn't want it to drag on for 3 or 4 years. Plus, I'm writing about marketing and advertising, and things change. And so I didn't want the stuff I'd talked about to be not even platforms people use anymore by the time it got published. So I had kind of a deadline in mind. Yeah.
Which is good. And then, so do you have any other plans for more books at this point?
No.
No?
I don't think so. I have built other products. My goal is to have people learn. I want to simplify sales and marketing for people, and people learn in different ways. So one-on-one coaching, I have my book, my group teaching, but I have recently launched an online course as well. Because some people like to sort of do the DIY. Here's 8 modules. You can learn the basic things that I teach in business development and marketing strategy through that. So that's something that I could see myself doing a second or third or fourth, because it's biteable chunks of the stuff that I teach, and they lead into each other. So I don't know about a book anytime soon, but online training is definitely an area that I like to teach in.
Well, and coaching, like, I mean, I coach my kids in sports, and I know your kids are in lots of activities too. Coaching isn't just showing up to the meeting, which is, and you already kind of alluded to it, especially in the marketing world. It's changing. Like, like I look at my kid's phone and TikTok. I gave up. Like, I don't even try the new stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So as a coach, I can only imagine that there's so much resource that you put in before you're coaching even. So as a coach, like, how do you do it? Like, how are you constantly trying to do continuous improvement or continual learning for you? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like it's my job to always be on top of what's going on right now in marketing, in advertising. So I'm always reading, I'm always listening to podcasts, I'm going to conferences, I'm sitting down with people who know different things than I do. But then the fundamentals of business development and marketing, they stay the same.
Yeah.
You have to figure out who your markets are going to be, like who you want to serve, what you want to serve them with, and you have to figure out how to tell them in a compelling way. So those things never change. So that's the basis of what I develop with my clients, because that's where business owners often and professionals who are trying to build business, that's where they miss the mark, is that they can't even explain what they do. Or they're trying to be everything to everybody. So those fundamental pieces have to be the beginning of your strategy before any tactics will work. So those things are the basis of what I coach, but absolutely I'm always keeping on top of the tactics so that I can speak to the things my clients want to try, or I can bring them ideas that are working for other people.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that's busy. And it's not that's the stuff that just goes totally unnoticed. And as a consultant, sometimes those are the things that people don't realize that's what they're paying for. They think they paid for that 45-minute meeting.
Right. Well, I always say a business coach is the mechanic of your business model. So I'm going to try to build it into a system that should automate business development for you. And so if you don't follow the system, it's not going to work. But there's a lot that goes into making that, me learning how that system works in the first place before I can offer it to my clients.
No, that's absolutely true. Well, thanks for being my guest
Thanks
today.
for having me again.
Make sure you guys, anybody watching, check out Daria and her book. And of course, thanks for being our guest. It's always great to see entrepreneurs in the city that have had a unique road to get to the point, and I like that you probably don't even realize where your road's headed at some points.
I don't think any of us do.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's fair. So stay tuned. On that note, stay tuned because there's going to be more episodes of The Road Less Traveled. We don't even know where that's going to go. And of course, other great shows on Spotlight.